now. Happy vibes, my friends. Welcome back to my podcast, Vibes by Alicia, where I believe in spreading killer vibes to light you up and give you that kick in the ass to craft the life you wish to live. This sacred space is dedicated to the lovers of all things business, travel, and lifestyle. Hey, it's about time you get the scoop on the latest vibes, so let's get to it. I am so excited, everyone, to introduce to you today my guest. It is someone that I met at a campaign stop for Beto O'Rourke, and it was in the Heights, and I was invited by, I think, a mutual friend. Michelle and George are mutual friends, and so I felt like, oh my gosh, the minute I met this guest, I was so excited to just bring her on and have her introduce her to all of you all. So welcome to the podcast, Lesley.
Thank you, Alicia. I'm honored. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so Lesley Briones is a candidate, and she's running for commissioner. So tell us a little bit about what that role is right now. What are you running for?
Sure. So thank you for having me. My name is Lesley Briones, and I am running to be your next Harris County Commissioner, Precinct 4. So Harris County and all counties in Texas are broken up into 4 precincts.
Okay.
And Harris County is bigger than 26 states. So each
Wow.
precinct has approximately 1.2 million people. And it's essentially being a super mayor, or think of it as a governor of a small state, given that Harris County is bigger than 26 states. And commissioners work on everything from sidewalks, roads, bridges, neighborhood parks, to flood mitigation, mobility, traffic, running the jail, and beyond, which we'll get into. But it's very much a nuts and bolts kind of roads all the way up to access to voting in the county.
It's a big job. Amazing. And I'm so excited to know that a Latina is running for this position. And it makes me so excited to just see all of these women just taking that plunge and being fearless about it. Because I think one thing that I hear a lot, it's like, oh, I'm not qualified enough, or I just, I don't deserve it. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that's going on. But I love to see it because I think that motivates other women to also push ahead and maybe not think so much about it and just do it. Because I think that's part of the problem is that we just think about it. That's especially for me. I think about it too much and then I don't do anything. So you're a native Texan, a proud Latina who grew up in the U.S.-Mexico border. Lesley developed a deep understanding for the struggles faced by working people and the importance of strong families and communities. You are bilingual and bicultural. Yes. And you are the daughter of teachers.
I am.
Oh my
Proud
gosh.
daughter of teachers. My parents are my role models and my best friends.
Wonderful. And they taught you the importance of education, hard work, and serving others. And those are values that have defined you.
Absolutely.
And which you plan to bring to the County Commissioner Precinct 4. So tell me about those values that your parents, because for me, I think that's they're my heroes as well. And I think those values that I grew up with them, I still bring them in everything that I do, whether it's work, whether it's life, whether it's my family, married life, my kids. I carry them with me everywhere I go. So tell us a little bit about that background.
So I'm like you, Alicia, I carry my parents with me always. And I feel as Latinas, and frankly, as women, we are the links to different generations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think about how fortunate we are and just the sacrifices that our grandparents, great-grandparents made to give us the opportunities we have. And so growing up in South Texas on the U.S.-Mexico border in Laredo, and I'm a proud Mexican-American, and back then the border was fluid, between Laredo and Nuevo Laredo. And that's how I grew up in this very binational, bicultural, bilingual background. And my parents were teachers, so they were all about, you need to use the talents and opportunities God has given you to serve others. And so that was always what it was at my house, and education was everything.
Were they bilingual teachers?
No, they weren't. They were actually English teachers. Actually, my dad was my mother's English professor.
Oh, wow.
But for education, I would not exist. But they're only 7 years apart, but I love teasing them about that.
Yeah.
But in any event, no, they were English teachers, professors, and then they became administrators at
I see.
schools.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm the oldest of 3, and they just always raised us with, you can do anything, we love you, go be yourself and go do good. And that really crafted who I am. And, and growing up on the border, many people never leave our community. And so I was so grateful that because of scholarships, because of student loans, because my parents always encouraged us and loved us unconditionally, I was able to get opportunities that I probably otherwise wouldn't have. And so now I'm committed every day to pay it forward for all the people who took a chance on me. And to one of your earlier points, Alicia, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's studies that show that women need to be asked at least 8 times to run for office because we think, oh, well, let me just get more experience, or, oh, maybe after my kids grow up, or, oh, there's
always other reasons why we shouldn't do it.
Exactly. There's always later or because of X. But you know what? At the end of the day, we all have to dive in, and I think we're all called to serve. So whether that's at your job and at your church, with your family, running for office, whatever it is, I feel especially as women, we are called to serve, and we're natural leaders, right? We do it all the time in all these facets of our life. So I'm really energized. You are so correct
about that. You are so correct. We are the leaders, and I think we don't take on that leadership role without responsibilities. I think we do carry those leaderships with responsibilities. I think like when we approach something, for example, when you approach running as a candidate, you approached it, with the hope that you were going to be able to contribute to society, which is something that you grew up with, some values that you grew up with, being, hardworking, the education that your parents gave you, which led you to Harvard University, which is something that, in statistics, a lot of Latinas, it's a very, very small amount of us that go to Harvard, which is an Ivy League university. So what led you to go there? Like, was that like always the dream that you had? Like you were going to go to the top school in the United States?
So apparently as a little girl, I got it stuck in my head somehow. And again, because my parents always told us, dream big, we believe you can do anything. With hard work, I'd always wanted to go to Harvard since I was little, but I didn't go to very good schools growing up. And I remember my high school counselor laughing at me like, what? You want to apply to Harvard? And I was like, yes, I'm going to apply. So I think being terca and just being very, mainly being stubborn, but also being bold. And because of my parents' unconditional love, I applied and I got into Harvard and all the schools I applied to, and I was very thankful for that. But when I got there, especially coming from schools that weren't as good as some of the other students, it's just this, I was so grateful to be there, and that really drove every day. And it was challenging, but it was 4 of the best years of my life.
And I think that also kind of gives you perspective on some of the issues that low socioeconomic students face when they don't have schooling that prepares them for universities such as that one. While other kids have private tutors, have SAT tutors and that kind of thing, like you never felt like you just didn't belong there. Like I'm asking this question, like, did you always feel like, well, maybe I don't come from the same background as most of the kids here, but it's something else. I have something else that's different and gives me that advantage.
Luckily, again, to keep going back to my parents, because they gave us such confidence and such unconditional love. I mean, I was so grateful to be there and knew how unique of an opportunity, but it was more this gratitude, not I don't belong. But it was hard because I had to have 3 to 4 part-time jobs in addition to my student loans.
Exactly, because it's expensive. So you went through with scholarships. You worked 3 part-time jobs, or it says something, working 3 part-time jobs to put yourself through school. That's amazing. Even through a Harvard workload, you still worked. Did you ever feel like you wanted to give up?
No, just because I knew how unique of an opportunity it was. And I thought, again, going back to the people I grew up around, how fortunate I was. And so to me, it was not just about me having this opportunity. It was about doing it for our community.
For everyone.
And so, so it just energized me. I mean, the harder it was, I just have that very stubborn, I guess,
which is going to serve you pretty good when you as you run, because I know there's a lot of things that are always challenges as we run for candidates, and people not believing in you or like thinking, well, who are you to take on this position? I know that the guy who's there, he's been there over 10 years. So, you have to have that confidence that I guess your parents gave you. And like, you've proven yourself since then that you have what it takes to get to the next level. I love that.
Confidence, persistence. I love
persistence
it.
Is so important. Yeah.
And I always try to, so I have 3 little girls and I'm always trying to teach them, like, you learn so much succeeding, but also from failing. And so you just get right back up and you're stronger and you're smarter and you do it again. And so I think we all just have to have that thick spine, which I, again, appreciate that I was raised like that, because in politics, to your point, you definitely need that thick skin.
Yes. And your parents were your example, and you want to be an example for your girls, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's how it is. So then you came back to the border and you served as an 8th and 10th grade teacher. So you went and worked in the high school. What made you want to go and teach?
So I love teaching. I think it's probably in my blood as the daughter of teachers. So I was actually, after Harvard, graduated, and I had a fellowship. So I was living abroad, and then my mother got a rare blood disease, and my mom is my best friend, as is my dad. So I went home, and she was on her deathbed. Luckily, she survived, but I wanted to be there as she recovered. And there were openings for teachers, and I've always taught like Sunday school, and in undergrad I taught recent immigrants English, and I just love teaching. So I taught 8th grade and then 10th grade, and being a teacher was, and I know you're smiling because I know you were a teacher for so long. I loved being in the classroom, and the schools I worked at were, not the best schools. So for example, we had a murder at the middle school, and many of my 8th graders were involved in the juvenile justice system. And being a teacher, as much as I loved being in the classroom, at the end of the day, I just saw that we need to change the system. So my kids were struggling, whether they had immigration-related issues, juvenile justice system, child welfare system, all these different systems were disserving my kids, which just angered me deeply. And I was like, I'd always wanted to be a lawyer since I was a little girl, and being a teacher kind of fired me up more. I was like, we need to change the laws. We need to have fair laws that are then fairly applied, and everybody needs to be treated equally and be given an equal shot to succeed, which is one of the things that is driving me to run for this office. So after teaching, I went back up east. I went to Yale for law school, which I loved. And then I moved to Houston 15 years ago.
And you practiced law since then?
I have, yes. I've been practicing law in different chapters. My life has been this wonderful journey of unexpected blessings, but I worked at a big law firm downtown at Vincent & Elkins, where I met my husband. So that was the unexpected blessing there. And then I worked as a general counsel and chief operating officer of a national nonprofit for about 8 years, working on issues from criminal justice reform, healthcare reform, education across the U.S., and we gave over $1 billion during my time there. So worked on, managing teams, building the team, hiring the team, doing all the operations as COO and as the general counsel. And then I've been your judge, one of your civil judges for the last several years, and now I hope to be your next commissioner.
So all of those things, I think all of those experiences sort of mold the person that you are now, and kind of giving you a perspective, teaching. And I think a lot of people don't realize that those experiences that we go through, whether it's a small job here or there, it gave you a perspective on the way these kids are growing up, and the way that it goes back. And this is one of those common themes I find in everything that I read about you, that it's equal rights for you is so important. And I think it's because that's something that you lived through and you saw it firsthand. And so many people, if they go to a big university like that, I think you just assume they're going to go and get a very high top, paying job. But you came back to your community, you came back to your parents, you knew your parents needed you at the time. And I think it's a really great story, to tell, that it gives you that perspective. It leads you to these things that you're doing now, and it gives you that strength, because I think ultimately you are doing it for the community, which is something that I can see definitely from you. So after being a teacher and serving, and then, working in law, you were a judge. And so how many years were you a judge?
Almost 3 years.
Okay, so you said a civil court. And so what motivated you to want to run for commissioner?
So I am the first lawyer in my family, and being a judge was beyond my wildest dreams. And that is another story of God's, unexpected blessings coming my way. But I was appointed to the bench, and then I had to run in 2020 to keep it. And I was up again in 2022 to keep the bench, which is what I had planned on doing. And I thought I'd spend the rest of my life on the bench. And I loved it because in some small way, I got to advance justice. In some small way, every day, I got to show people that the court system works for them and that they are equal under the law. I got a call when the new maps, so every 10 years after the census, the 4 precincts are redrawn to reflect growth and shifts, in the county. And precinct 4 is now a new precinct 4. And I'll go into more detail about Precinct 4. But the bottom line is I got a call to run.
Okay.
And I guess I'm one of these that you don't have to ask 8 times, but I was already running
Who
for
called
the bench.
you?
A lawyer in town.
Okay.
And I was already running for the bench, so I was already going to be on the ticket in 2022.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And basically this lawyer said, you know, I'm a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
Democrats, you know, we've seen you and we know you love being a judge, but you also love being in the community, and you've been able to build a very diverse coalition of support and cross, you know, racial and ethnic and gender lines and age, etc. We think you'd be excellent. Think about it. And I had never thought of running for commissioner. Frankly, I'd never thought of running for judge. But I decided to do it because at the end of the day, being a commissioner, you have the ability to impact people's day-to-day lives in real, tangible ways, whether that's the sidewalk and park in their neighborhood, or whether that's how many voting locations they have, public safety, fixing our highway system. I mean, you get to affect lives in a very proactive way. And the thought of being part of the solution just energized me to my core. And as a judge, you help people, but it's very reactive, not proactive.
Right.
Because I was a civil judge, but it's all gone wrong and is in a lawsuit, right? And the lawsuit's before you. And so you listen, you treat them with respect, you uphold the law, but you're not really fixing the systemic issue, right? The fundamental problem.
Yes.
And as much as being a judge moved me, this is the combination of my experience, you know, in the courtroom plus the classroom plus my time 8 years at this nonprofit think tank. Like at the end of the day, I want to be in the community, working with people, helping to solve problems that at the end of the day makes lives better, not only for us to the quality of life, but for our children and grandchildren, more importantly. So I thought it would give me the ability to do more, to serve.
So what do you say to people who are cynics and say there's no way one person can have this effect on so many people? There's no way. Like, you're thinking that you can do so much good and it's impossible. You have too many roadblocks. You have too many naysayers. What do you say to people who say that? Because I hear it all the time. Oh, my vote won't count. It doesn't matter. You know, they're not even worried about me. It's this apathy. Tell me a little bit about that, how you handle that.
We definitely see the apathy quite frequently, and there will be challenges. I'm under no delusions that there will not be. That being said, what I say when we're knocking on doors or calling voters or when I'm talking to students, because I'm also an adjunct at U of H, your vote does count. You need to vote. And if you don't vote, don't complain that things aren't the way they should be, because your vote literally is your voice. And if we all throw up our hands and just accept the way things are, then things aren't going to change for sure. Yes, things may take longer to change than we like, and we all get frustrated with government, with many
bureaucracy.
Things, bureaucracy. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to make the change, then who is, right? So someone needs to step up to the plate. And in my opinion, we need people to step up to the plate who do have a heart of public service, who are solutions oriented, who are creative, who are bold, who are going to, you know, leave no rock unturned and look across the country to see what is working, what isn't, what have we done here in Harris County. And I think we've made a lot of progress recently, but there's so much more to be done. But at the end of the day, I believe that we need to be the change. And it's easy to be cynical. It's easy to throw up your hands. It's easy to sit and binge watch Netflix,
and be a negative Nelly and not do anything about it. But, you know, there's people. And so when you face that kind of thing, is there something in your life that you go to? That, and something in your inner person, in your inner spirit, in the essence of who you are, to remind yourself that one person can affect change. I
mean, I think of all our teachers, you know, and I think of all the teachers who impacted me, who impacted you, Alicia. Like one person in one classroom can make a difference. One mayor of a city can make a difference. A president can make a difference. Now, the difference could be positive or negative, as we have all experienced. And again, one person's never going to solve anything, under no delusion. But at the end of the day, if you have a person who can inspire hope, who can mobilize people to want to act and be a part of the change, I think this is a complete team effort. And we need leaders who inspire public confidence and public trust. And frankly, I think we need people to run who aren't so stuck in their own party. Like when you run for office, you serve everybody, those who voted for you, those who didn't vote for you, those who didn't vote at all. Like you are a public servant working for the people. And I believe that to my core. And those are the kind of people we need to run for office. So if you're listening to this podcast and you've thought of running for office, do it. Count this as one of the times someone's asking you. I am asking you to run. But even if you don't want to run, you know what? We need people to support us.
To volunteer and to help.
Knock on
to
doors,
donate.
make calls, to donate money. Or if you don't want to run for office, there's some way you can help with your, the PTA at your school or your church or your workplace. There's always ways we can be a part of the change. And I do believe we're all called to serve.
I love that. So there are 4 commissioners in Harris County. Harris County Court is made up of the county judge, who serves as the county's chief executive officer, and 4 commissioners.
Correct.
The judge is elected countywide, and the commissioners are elected by district. You would represent 1.3 million residents, you yourself, and manage a staff of 445 employees. And you will have a budget of $290.5 million. $290.5 million. Is it task daunting or is it exciting?
To me, it energizes me.
Oh my God,
I'm that type of person. That's something, the more challenging, the more excited I become. And, whether that was the 17-year-old Latina from the border showing up at Harvard and having to work extra hard, or whether that's, I worked at a nonprofit where we gave away $1 billion, and I have managed several $100 million budgets on an annual basis and hired a team, managed a team. And so it's things I've done, and I want to build on that experience. And I look forward to diving in. I mean, I always would tell my students, if I could, I'd be a student forever. And they'd look at me like, why? But I love learning. And so the thought of just delving into the engineering and working with the Army Corps of Engineers and coming, studying flood mitigation. I mean, that lights my fire because I love learning. I'm a fast learner. And at the end of the day, I am drawn to service. So it will be an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to serve Precinct 4 with, the values that I believe I bring to the table.
Yeah. So. And I love that excitement. I love to hear you say that it excites you, that even though it is a big job, you're ready for it. You're prepared for it. You have the background. You have the experiences. You've managed a lot of money before. It's not like it's a new thing. It's not your first rodeo. This is just another way for you to serve. I think for you, it's so important. The word serve is something that also is a very, very big theme in what you do. And I think that's why people get excited over candidates, because we get excited when they're excited about what they're going to do and what they're going to approach. And even if something is big, it's like, yeah, I can do it. Well, why not? Finally, somebody like me can come in there and actually do something that can change things and maybe make it better. I was reading that the person who's still there, and he's been there for a long time, he was upset because there was some mapping going on. So tell us a little bit of how those maps are drawn. And your map for your precinct and what that includes. What areas does that include?
Sure. So every 10 years, the maps are redrawn based on the census. And this time it was a very iterative process. Individuals from the county and could submit their own version of the map and go testify. And so it was a very iterative process. All the maps that had been submitted were posted online. So, it was very transparent and open to the community. Okay. So that's what happens every 10 years. So the Precinct 4 now, the new Precinct 4, is huge. As I mentioned, Harris County is bigger than 26 states. So it's a fourth of that. It is about 1.2 million people. It is a majority minority district. So it's about 40% Latino, 20% African American, 14% Asian American Pacific Islander, and then the rest white. It is so varied. It's this big hook. Go to lesleybriones.com if you want to see the map. And I have an interactive version. But essentially, if you live from the Beltway 8 all the way out to Katy, you're in Precinct 4. Then it shoots up to Waller and a bit of Cypress. And then under I-10, it comes down and it has Alief, Sharpstown, Gulfton, Asiatown, a little bit of Bel Air, a little bit of Meyerland. And then it cuts to the kind of Afton Oaks around the Galleria. Okay. And it's all of River Oaks, little bit of Rice Military, and a little bit of Timber Grove, Lazy Brook, or most of Timber Grove, Lazy Brook, and then the 290 Hempstead. So it's a massive hook.
So we would go to your website,
lesleybriones.com,
and see if we live in your precinct.
You can see a map there.
You can see a map.
If you look up your voter registration information, you can also see not only which precinct you live in, but what congressional district, what city council district. And so that's a helpful way. And if on the topic of resources, if you haven't registered to vote, or you have, but you're unsure if you're going to get a vote by mail application, if you have any questions whatsoever about voting, go to harrisvotes.org.
Okay.
harrisvotes.org. And there's also a phone number for those of you who just may want to call and get more, answers that you may not find online, but harrisvotes.org.
So it's vast. And it's filled with so many different areas and different ethnicities and demographics. Wow. Is that because of gerrymandering?
Well, depends on how you define gerrymandering, I guess. But it's drawing maps. Not a cartographer. But basically that was driven by the information from the 2020 census
the 2020
and the changes.
Census.
I mean, Harris County continues to become more and more diverse. And so, there were many, many maps submitted, and ultimately that was the one voted on by the majority.
So it could become that there would be a supermajority of Democrats on the Harris County Commissioner's Court if you get elected. So tell me about you're running, and so you have an election on May 24th, and that is the Democratic primary.
Correct. So we had the March 1st primary, and there were 7 Democrats, including me, who ran, and it was an honor to run alongside them.
Okay.
We came out first of the 7. But there were 7. So math kicks in, and we didn't, now we're in a runoff. So the runoff is May 24th, and early voting starts May 16th. So right 16th. After Mother's Day, mark your calendars for that next week, May 16th. And it's only one Monday through Friday of early voting. There's no weekend. So May 16th, and then the actual election's Tuesday, May 24th. And then God willing, when I win, then it would be me and the incumbent Republican in November 8th.
November 8th. Okay. And if you want to find out where to vote, would they be able to go to your website as well?
harrisvotes.org would be the
go
best
back to that
way,
place.
And then it can show you all the polling locations, hours, etc. harrisvotes.org. It's actually very, very helpful.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, so we have that May 24th. We're not going to forget that. And the day right after Mother's Day, everyone, we're going to get out and we're going to go vote for Lesley Briones. That's for sure. Yes. So, Lesley, I'm just super excited that you're here because I really love the idea that we can finally have more women in political office, more progressives. That makes me so excited. So part of your platform, I picked a few things that I wanted to talk to you about your platform and your priorities because I know it's a diverse population and not everyone agrees with the same thing. There's a few items on here where someone might lean more conservative, someone might lean more liberal. It's very different. And so for you, these were some of the things that I found wow, yeah, I really wanted to talk to you about because I think they're so important and they really affect our community a lot. So let's talk about expanding access for affordable health care. How does a commissioner, what impact do they have with affordable health care?
So let me give you one example. For example, in Precinct 2, what Commissioner Garcia has done has partnered with the medical center to bring smart pods. He has a partnership with Baylor College of Medicine for Precinct 2, and they have so it's mobile health clinics that he's put in the community because I am so proud that we live in one of the best world-class medical centers, but that care isn't always in the most underserved communities. Right. So my number one action item with regard to expanding healthcare will be to create that partnership so we have those mobile health clinics deep in Precinct 4 in the most underserved areas.
And how are those funded, by the way?
Through the county budget. And then my goal, coming again from my background of doing a lot of public-private partnerships, there's a lot of opportunities to have, whether it's philanthropy or public-private partnerships, to make sure there's skin in the game by multiple stakeholders in our community. But for that, for instance, that we, the Harris County, we have Harris Health and there's different pockets of healthcare funding that is managed by Commissioner's Court. So that I would foresee most likely being from the county budget, because there is a county healthcare system available that just, again, needs to expand further. But my vision is to partner with our world-class healthcare and see how much some of these, we have, whether it's the Methodist, MD Anderson, Memorial Hermann, what more can they do to step up as community members to infiltrate and permeate into underserved communities? But the other piece of it is, and the reason the county is spending so much is because our state level government hasn't expanded Medicaid, which to me is unconscionable when we are one of the most under and uninsured states in the country. So one of my other action items, which has been already done and which needs to be done in a very persistent fashion, is on our legislative agenda for the county to make sure we're pushing the state government and state leadership to expand Medicaid, because when we have federal monies available that we're not availing ourselves, that's taking county and other
And is that just because ideologically they don't want to take it, even though their constituents would be served by it?
Yes.
Wow.
So that's another action item. And then, frankly, I want to look at health in a much more preventative way. So, as we all know, it drives up the costs if we're having people go to the emergency room.
Of course,
Like, what we need to do is really start addressing more purposefully food deserts and healthy eating and physical and mental health from a very early age, partnering even more purposefully with school districts, churches, community centers, especially, in our communities of color where we have the highest rates of diabetes or maternal deaths or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, disproportionate impact from the pandemic. So I want to think holistically and very purposefully of health in a broad way that's proactive.
And preventive care. Just making it something that's, and it's true, because the more poor the community, the more access they have to quick, easy, fast food. And that typically leads to problems with health. And so I feel like we're trying to address just the problem and never the root cause for that, and I feel like that's always something that's continuously happening. And I read here that even just Harris County, 200,000 uninsured Harris County residents.
200,000. And imagine there's an action we could take. We the state of Texas. We need to get that done.
Okay, let's move on to flooding, because flooding has also been a big problem in the city. And I guess, I even feel still like a little PTSD when it starts to rain pretty hard, because I'm thinking, oh no, here we go again with another flood. And that shouldn't be the case, right? I mean, we shouldn't have to worry about that.
We should not. I even felt that PTSD you're talking about, Alicia, this morning, actually, with the storm we had.
This morning.
The water was rising. The street in front of where my kids go to school was flooded. I mean, we all have PTSD.
I think a lot of us do after Harvey.
So much. And one other quick anecdote before I tell you some of my ideas is my baby, Ana Lucia, she was born right around Harvey. She was due right around there. And I just remember, so our home thankfully was not flooded, but all the streets between my home and any hospital were completely flooded. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to have this baby in the bathtub. So I was just praying and praying and praying she stayed in. Luckily she did. She was not born in the bathtub. But those are the sort of stories where we have friends who have had to break through their roof and wait for a helicopter or float down with an air mattress down their street. And these are things we've all, in my court, I had so many cases where contractors or, just different disputes with regard to insurance disputes with regard to repairing homes. I mean, we're all still suffering. And it's this kind of pay now or pay later, right? It's going to happen again.
It is. It's inevitable.
We need to address it. So here are some of my thoughts. One, very basic, not sexy, but we need to maintain ditches better, especially in our communities of color. Ditches get backed up with debris, with leaves, etc., and it doesn't trash, exactly, and then the water doesn't drain properly, which exacerbates the problem. So I want to have my crew in Precinct 4 is going to be very purposeful, and we are going to have a number where you can get 24 to 48 hour service to clean any ditches. 2, I want to study the areas that don't have a park or detention pond in Precinct 4 and get to work on creating, so you can have a dual use, a detention pond, which is basically a field that you can have as a park. So it not only absorbs water in a natural green way and helps the air quality, but it's also a place where our kids can play and help with physical and mental health, to our earlier points. So I want to create these neighborhood detention ponds as well. Further, we need to make sure that along our bayous, we're continuing to have the green vegetation so that we have more natural absorption, because concreting our way is not going to, it's just exacerbating the problem. We need to create additional capacities in our ditches and bayous by expanding them. And we need to work with the federal government. So for instance, Addicks and Barker are in Precinct 4. And we know that those are two of the six most dangerous dams in the United States. And so, for example, A, we need to increase their capacity. B, there's, this study that's been going on and now is resurrected again, but whether the deep tunnel system to make sure that we are transferring the water out into the Galveston Bay is another idea. And there's just so many different actions. But at the end of the day, I want to prioritize green solutions and using our natural infrastructure, plants, grass, et cetera, to help with the natural absorption, and making sure that we are being very thoughtful in the new developments to make sure that we keep flood mitigation front and center, because our population continues to grow.
Right, which was going to lead me to the next question. And you said concrete. So is there a way for there to be limited construction so that there isn't so much? I mean, I know that's part of business, that's part of, economic growth, but a lot of these neighborhoods, a lot of these places are going in places where, again, they're getting rid of a lot of vegetation and replacing it with concrete. Is that something that you would handle in Commissioner?
Well, I would try to incentivize, because to me, at the end of the day, we're going to keep developing, and it's positive.
Yeah.
We need to create Houston as our economic hub in this country, one of the huge economic hubs. So I'm very much pro continuing our development. But how do we incentivize the contractors and developers to make sure that they're prioritizing green solutions and the materials and the approaches in these new developments, the parks they're adding, and just making sure that that is a key component.
Right.
And as a commissioner, there are county projects. And so in our procurement process, making sure that prioritizing green solutions and keeping flood mitigation front and center is something I'm very committed to doing, so that, we all don't have to, we shouldn't live in this fear. We're not going to stop flooding, but what we can do is better our drainage, better the conveyance,
so that we're prepared for the next time, because it is going to happen and it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So we have to be ready for it. I wanted to talk to you about something called keeping our family safe. And I believe that is something also that I think is just such a big issue for moms like myself, women who have kids in schools. There's always a fear that our kids are being sent to school, and there's all these possibilities, all these things that can happen, and the crime rate in the city of Houston just continuously it's so pervasive. And I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about how you plan, or what that part of the platform is for you, especially as violent crime is going on the rise.
So I am extremely committed to keeping all of our families safe, and the perspective I bring to the table, and then I'll talk about some solutions that I've been thinking about. But I've been the victim of crime several times, actually, since as a little girl to my adulthood, and nobody deserves to be victimized, and no one should have to live with that, what that does to you. And also, I'm the mother of 3 young girls, and I don't like that I can't let my kids play in the front yard by themselves, much less walk to the park a couple blocks away. We all have stories of things that have happened in our neighborhoods, and it's just unacceptable. And I've had students murdered, and I could go on and on. But my husband's cousin was murdered. I could go on, but the point is, me and my family have been the victims, and I'm a mother. And I was shocked to learn this. Maybe I shouldn't have been shocked. I will, God willing, be the very first mother ever elected to Harris County Commissioner's Court. The first mother. We need that perspective, because if anybody cares about safety, it sure is mothers protecting their babies. And so several things. First of all, I'm very committed to listening to law enforcement and what they say their needs are. I stand with law enforcement. I am very supportive and honor their sacrifices. 2, I want to make sure their law enforcement has the technology that they need to be communicating, because as you know, there's over 70 different law enforcement agencies in Harris County. So
over 70?
Yeah. All the different, when you think of the different school districts,
public and private?
Well, there's different layers. So it's, the sheriff's office, the constables, all the HPDs and all the other cities' police departments, meets. HCC has a police. HISD,
HISD has their own.
All the different school districts.
Wow.
And so if you think
70, I had no idea.
Yeah, over 70.
Wow.
Over. And so making sure that we are all collaborating in the most effective and efficient way through the use of technology, there's various new technologies, but making sure we're using data analytics to respond instantaneously to shootings. So for instance, shot spotter technology, or I'm a huge proponent of working with communities and having proactive community-based policing, so that we have the trust between the community and law enforcement. So working with the churches, with the community centers, with the people in the communities, so that it's a team approach to law enforcement. And so we're solving crimes. And I want to make sure law enforcement has the resources, not only the resources to respond, but then to investigate crimes, right? That's a problem. And then relatedly, unfortunately, there's a substantial backlog in criminal cases. And we need to make sure we have enough funding, continued funding. Commissioner's Court has already allocated some, but for visiting judges and associate judges to clear up that backlog. To
hear these cases and keep them moving?
Yes, because we need to move them along. And if somebody is found guilty, then that's
is that why we have such a controversy with bonds?
It's related but separate.
Okay, so it's separate. Okay.
But related, because before trial, in our constitutional, everyone in the U.S. is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Well, criminal court judges set a bond.
Yes. And
then depending on the bail bondsman, it could be they have to pay 10%, but there's been recently, some are only charging 3%. And so there's been a lot of talk about that lately.
Yes.
From my vantage point, and I've never been a criminal judge, I was only a civil judge, but to me, if someone is a threat to public safety, they should not be released.
And they shouldn't be bonded.
They should not be released if they're a threat to public safety. Now, if someone is not a threat to public safety and they can return to work and continue being productive citizens, okay, fine. But another whole conflation that needs to be separate. There's misdemeanor bail reform, which misdemeanor are low level, usually nonviolent offenses. I'm very committed to that, and we should not criminalize people because they can't pay, right? We should not criminalize poverty, and if it's a misdemeanor, you should, be released and continue being a productive citizen, providing for your family, and then come back to court for your day in court. Now, felonies is a whole other system. And in my event, again, I've never been a criminal court judge, and they're looking at all the facts and circumstances surrounding a defendant. But we need to keep public safety front and center, because if someone is shown and, through their criminal record and through their actions, we need to make sure we're prioritizing safety. So in sum, public safety is of paramount importance to me, not only as somebody who lives in this community, but as a mother. And so I will bring that perspective to Commissioner's Court, to making sure we're looking at it, in a very holistic way. And at the end of the day, we need to have, to one of your earlier points, Alicia, the root causes. We need to make sure that we're giving people the educational opportunities, the health opportunities to lead productive.
Yeah, no, because I as a person outside looking in, what we're hearing is there's too many guns. There's not enough, gun control. Again, it's one of those hot topics, but quite frankly, it's something that lives in our heads all day, every day. If we're sending our kids to school, I have a middle schooler, I have a college student. I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about those things and all of these laws. And I know it's not something that it's necessarily for commissioners, but I know that's where our mind is. That's where our and I see there's a lot of prevention. There's a lot of, allocating resources, but in our head, we are listening to bullet points, and we're listening to one word ideas like, defund the police or gun control. And those things I think need to be more clarified, just like you did right now. And I think you clarified a lot of what that means, what it means to fund the police, what it means to give them the proper resources, or maybe providing for them programs, technology, that kind of thing. Because I mean, as much as we want to believe that we want to give these police all of this technology, again, a lot of our community is very distrustful of that. And unless we can address those things, and maybe address the moms that are afraid and are scared of what's going on in the community right now, I don't know if there's a solution for that.
I think it's one of those all of the above, kind of both and. Like, we can't look at this in isolation. But I do agree on a macro scale, beyond what I talked about, gun control, what reform federally and at the state level. That's a whole other broader discussion. Also mental health, right? The Harris County Jail is one of the biggest mental health facilities. So I've really liked one of the new programs Commissioner's Court has funded, where, giving training so that if there is an episode with regard to mental health or suicide or addiction, you have someone with mental health training to respond, so that the law enforcement officers can be responding to violent crime where they're needed, right? So it's about leveraging resources, and we don't need to criminalize someone if it really is, it's regarding homelessness or addiction. Right. Like, we need to get treatment,
which is always criminalized. Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be separating and just having really honest conversations. And I think people are too quick to point fingers or go back to defund, some of the things that you were saying. And I'm all I can say is I stand with law enforcement. I honor their sacrifice. And I think we all want our families to be safe.
Absolutely. And when we're not safe, we want somebody to come and keep us safe. So definitely, I think police is somebody that we definitely need, and we definitely need to have in our communities. And it's definitely something I feel like just needs to have like a huge conversation that needs to happen around that. But I appreciate you approaching it and like giving us that perspective on the other side. And that, that background that a lot of people don't understand. I think it's a lot about like bullet points and whatever's going to get people like agitated, and then I just want to talk a little bit more about a few more of your platforms. Sure. You stand strong with Texas women. I think that's something that's very, very prevalent in my community and the community that I'm with. The women that I associate with, professional women, a lot of them are married and they don't want, more children. I think they feel like their rights are being eroded by the state of Texas. And having somebody like you, and I know that you made a stand and you made a platform there, and you said, I'm here to stand with Texas women. And I think that's important to remind us, that it's still, we're still a part of the society, as much as the state sometimes wants to ignore us or wants to pretend like it's not a big deal. I mean, with a lot of the issues with the trans children, a lot of those things, those are things that are affecting moms. Those are things that are affecting women like us, and we have a voice. So
absolutely,
if this matters to you, go out and vote, please.
Please vote.
And you want to protect our right to vote, talking about voting.
Exactly.
Because, again, eroding our rights.
Exactly. So
making
I believe
it more difficult.
As women, we have a constitutional right for decades to choose what we decide to do with our bodies. It is our constitutional right that we have had for decades. And in the state of Texas, that is being eroded. And we will see how it plays out ultimately in the U.S. Supreme Court through various cases that are on deck. But at the end of the day, as a mother of 3 young girls, I don't want to raise them in a place that we are going back literally decades in terms of a woman and her right to choose what she does with her own body. And so we all have different views on this, but at the end of the day, I believe that as women, we must fight for our rights. And as men, you need to fight for your rights. And as men who are the father or husband or whatever
brother,
you may be, brother. To me, any erosion of rights, I think we all need to be pushing towards equality and opportunity for all rather than carving back. I mean, I don't want our society to retrogress, whether that's with the right to vote or what we do with our bodies versus, how we treat children in the state of Texas. It is, I am shocked.
It's shocking. And it just feels like the more we try to change things, the more things stay the same. It just feels like so frustrating that sometimes you feel like you're accomplishing something and then this starts to happen. And then again, like, and you feel so devastated and you don't even want to participate in the process anymore because you feel, for what? They're just going to affect me. And it's something that always affects, women of color and women of socioeconomic means, because I think those are things where, I don't know, for me, in a lot of ways, it's like, the state of Texas is saying, well, we really don't care about you. You really don't matter to us. You're not going to vote for us. So we're going to do whatever we want to impose our social justice. I mean, I call them like social justice warriors. I call them dinosaurs sometimes, like in another era. No, I said that, she didn't.
Yeah. No, but I'm with you, Alicia. But that's the thing.
It's hard.
As angry as you may get, as frustrated as you may get, what I say and what I challenge you to do is use that anger, use that frustration.
Yeah.
Don't let it turn into apathy. Turn it into action. And the first and foremost action is vote religiously. Every single election, vote. Because you might be listening and you might applaud what Abbott and Paxton and company are doing. And that is your absolute right. Well, go vote and go get more people like that.
Yes.
But if that doesn't speak to you and you don't, you actually do want to uphold your own constitutional rights and those of others, go vote. Because at the end of the day, the only way, we live in a democracy, the only way we're going to change is if we vote. And we need to vote people into office who reflect our values. And we all have different values, but if you're not speaking for your values, the other people who don't have your values will speak for theirs.
That's so true.
We turn your anger into action, not apathy.
And guys, vote in local elections. Don't just wait until it's for president. Don't wait until it's that year. You are impacted so much by local elections. Every time somebody runs for judge, every time somebody runs for commissioner, for I think there's a Harris County, there's so many different positions, there's so many things that you can vote at the local level. Don't wait until it's the big one, like, the presidential election. Don't, because honestly, we're affected so much by local things, even at the state level. All of those things are affecting us so much. But guys, I want to just remind you to please get out to vote. On May 24th is the runoff. She will be on the ballot and you will be running. And so we're going to be voting for Lesley Briones. And also go to harrisvotes.org if you want to know where you're voting. I guess all the details of all the people that are there and they're going to be running, or where they can vote, or if they're registered to vote. Correct? Is that the place to go?
Check your
and then if they want to know more about you, they can go to lesleybriones.com. Lesley is spelled Lesley, Briones.com. Okay, let's go back to Harris Votes. harrisvotes.com. Yes. Awesome.
Yes. So I please need you. I please need your vote on May 24th, and then when we win on November 8th. But again, this is about you. I feel like we're all on the ballot. Public safety is on the ballot. Our rights to vote, our rights to what we do to our bodies, educational opportunities for our children, access to affordable health care. All of these things are on the ballot. And so please make sure you are registered to vote, and then please vote in every single election because your vote matters. I had a friend who ran who literally lost by 9 votes. So if 9 more people had come out, so your vote actually matters. And to Alicia's point, these local and city and county elections matter even more because you're going to care who your family court judge is when, knock on wood, you may be getting a divorce or you're in a custody battle.
Exactly.
You're going to care who your civil court judge is when you're in a contractual dispute over when your contractor didn't fix everything matters.
It does.
Who your city council person is when you're looking to get another, speed bump or light or fix a pothole. Like, it all matters. So please, we need your vote. And in whatever way you are called to serve in your own life, with your family, at your work, at church, running for office, whatever it may be, we need you. And I believe that together we are stronger. And especially as women, I think we have a superpower. And so thank you, Alicia, for all you do to empower other women and for giving me this opportunity today. I'm grateful. And for those of you who want to join our campaign, knock on doors, make calls, or donate, please visit lesleybriones.com. And if you have any questions, you can get a hold of me there as well. I would love your ideas. And again, let's be a part of the solution together. Thank you.
I love that. And it's been a pleasure having you. I appreciate you coming on and giving us your point of view, your perspective, your history, your experiences. I think that is so important. And we will also be including all of your information on the description for the podcast episode. So you all will be able to see those links. Follow her on Instagram. I know I'm following you on Instagram. So I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. And let's get out to vote May 24th, everyone.
May 24th. Thank you.